Well, you know, a team that is not going to make the Western Conference Finals, to segue, is the Phoenix Suns, who were celebrated this week after winning a couple of games in a row and moving up to 10th in the Western Conference into the play-in field in the West. Been a rough season in Phoenix, start to bottom, start to almost finish, I guess I should say. Kevin Durant, trade rumors dogged him for most of the year. I want to talk about the interview that Matt Ishbia, the owner of the Suns, gave to ESPN. And he talked about kind of the core of this team and how he still believed in it. He still believed that there was a championship team in this core. And really, he's talking about Devin Booker. Like, Devin Booker is the guy that Matt Ishbia made clear in this interview what other people in Phoenix have been privately communicating for months now. That Devin Booker is not going to be traded. Devin Booker is part of the foundation of this team. He's the kind of guy that you build around. I had to read that story a couple of times, Rachel, because I just don't know how it makes a ton of sense. You're not a team that's close to winning a championship. You're not even a team that's really close to being in the top 6 in the Western Conference. You have an aging superstar in Kevin Durant, who's probably going to get traded this summer. I think everybody kind of recognizes that Kevin Durant's time in Phoenix is coming to an end. You're never going to convince me that whatever you get back for Kevin Durant is going to all of a sudden, prove to be the missing elixir. It's going to be the right mix of guys around Devin Booker. You're talking about going into next year, which is Devin Booker's age 29 season, with Devin Booker, with Bradley Beal, and with some new pieces after dealing away Kevin Durant. I don't see how that gets you into the play-in tournament, given what, again, we expect teams below Phoenix right now to keep moving up, keep doing, making moves to get into that playoff field. So what did you make of that interview? Matt Ishbia's kind of position on all this? Do you buy any of it? Do you buy some of it? Where do you stand on this?
Well, three things really stood out to me in that story. And I believe it was Tim Bontemps at ESPN, who really was a very thoroughly reported story. Few things. I agree with Matt Ishbia on one important thing about Devin Booker. He said, to win a title, you need a championship level guy who can play with the best of them. You can't win a title without at least one of those guys, right? There's an argument you can't win without two, but certainly one. So why would I trade away when I have one of those guys on my roster? Why would I trade him away at age 29 when I was just trying to be eventually getting back to someone as good as Devin Booker? And I agree with that. I think sometimes teams are too quick to trade their biggest star when they're doing a rebuild. But the question is, can they trade Bradley Beal? Because the other thing that stood out to me, the number 2 thing of the 3 points in that story, was Bradley Beal saying, for the first time I have heard him say it out loud, I'm going to consider my options this summer. It all lays out. It's a lot easier to figure it out then, and we'll see where we are. Obviously, he holds all the cards. He gets to make the decision because of that no trade clause that has never been traded around from Washington's problem, obviously, over and over again, let's just say. If he leaves, yes, you keep Devin Booker, right? If he leaves, then you have enough on your roster without Kevin Durant's money, without Bradley Beal's money. Yes, you can start a rebuild around Devin Booker without a total bottom out rebound. And you can do that. You have to convince Bradley Beal to want to leave. And someone else has to be convinced that they want to take him. And that is the other side of the equation that we saw during
2
this
full
trade
years
deadlines.
left in that contract. Yeah.
Right? So it's not just, Bradley Beal may finally be willing to agree to a trade. It's someone's going to want him at that salary. But if that does happen, yeah, I agree with don't trade away Devin Booker. And one thing I've thought is, you know what, if Devin Booker asked for a trade at this point, it would be okay. He has given his blood and sweat to that franchise. They've gone around in a bunch of circles. I think he's had 4 coaches in 4 or 5 years. I wouldn't be mad at him for asking for a trade, but he has made it very clear he has no intention to do that. His hero, Kobe Bryant, played for one team his entire career, and Devin has explicitly, loudly, and often said he wants to do that, and he did it again in this story that Tim wrote. So I think that's not going to be the change. Ishbia doesn't want to trade him away. They have to see whether Beal is willing to go somewhere and someone is willing to take him. The third thing that stood out to me in that story was Ishbia saying, we're never going to do the bottom out thing. We're never going to do that. That's not the kind of guy I am. I'm always going to go for it. We're never going to be the kind of team that just sells everyone for parts and bottoms out and builds again. And that to me is the new owner syndrome that we always talk about, Chris. It's not just about, does he overspend a lot? It's not about, oh, do I trade all these guys? It is thinking that you can reinvent the wheel. The NBA is 76, 77 years old. There have been a lot of owners in NBA history. There is a reason there are maxims about how you do certain things because it has been proven out over time that this is what you need to do in certain situations. So I'm still seeing a couple of years in that new owner syndrome from Matt Ishbia. And if I was a Phoenix Suns fan, I'd be a little concerned about that. But I don't know if you can convince Beal to go and convince someone to take him. I think you do keep Devin Booker. And I see a path for them to, significantly move forward.
On the Booker Kobe stuff, maybe someone should remind Booker that Kobe did ask out of Los Angeles at one point.
Kobe asked for a trade on the radio. He didn't even do it privately. He did it on the radio. And Jerry Buss was like, not while I'm alive.
That Kobe wound up playing his whole career with the Los Angeles Lakers was as much luck and circumstance as it was a dogged determination to only play for that team. Like there was a point where I think he was going to play for the Clippers. He was definitely going to play for the Bulls at one point. Excuse me. Like he was, or it's not like he was always committed to one franchise for his entire career. I get the desire to do it, but to me, the Kobe analogy, someone needs to, get us some articles from back then. I don't believe that the Suns can win a championship with Devin Booker. I believe that Devin Booker is too old to win a championship in Phoenix. Not too old to win a championship, but too old to win a championship in Phoenix. I don't believe that, dealing away Kevin Durant and maybe Bradley Beal under even the best of circumstances is going to bring back the right mix of talent that Devin Booker can lead to the promised land. I think this team is way too far behind everybody else, every other top team in the Western Conference, maybe even way too far behind some of the teams behind them. Like, let's say Wembanyama comes back next year, San Antonio gets De'Aaron Fox to come back, they plug somebody else into using their assets. They're going to zoom up and, as you've talked about many times, become the team to beat in the Western Conference. I just don't see it. And Devin Booker's value is going to decrease every year after this summer because next summer he's going to be entering his age 30 season with one less year left on that deal. His value right now is at its peak, not just because he's the best player I think he possibly can be, but because this summer, I believe the options are going to be there. We've talked about Houston, how badly they want to get their hands on Devin Booker. They would move heaven and earth to get a Devin Booker, including giving back the Suns some of the draft capital that they own over the next few years. How about Oklahoma City? Like, let's say Oklahoma City fizzles out in the second round for some reason, hypothetically. It doesn't go their way. They don't win a championship. They've got all these draft picks. They've got all these young players, all this talent. What if they deal away a bunch of that stuff, give a giant package to Phoenix and get Devin Booker back in return to plug Devin Booker opposite Jalen Williams and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in that mix? That's something you got to consider. And this idea that bottoming out is not for us, we don't want to do it. Okay, but bottoming out, it works. Look at the teams at the top of the standings in both conferences right now. You had between 2018 and 2021, the Cleveland Cavaliers did not win more than 22 games. Right now, they lost out on 70, but they're still in that 65 to 68 win pace. Oklahoma City, 3 years removed from a 24-win season. Houston was a dumpster fire 2 years ago. Remember what they were? Stephen Silas had to deal with that crazy roster. Kevin Porter Jr., Christian Wood. 2 years later, they've got one of the most enviable young cores in the NBA. Yes, bottoming out sucks. It leads to some painful attendance years, some laughable years, but it works. If you have the right people in place to help you rebuild, it works. I don't get this sort of walking on a treadmill strategy of like, let's just keep Devin Booker and try to build some kind of winner around him. That's crazy. Like, it's just not going to work. If Devin Booker was 5 years younger, I would say yes, it absolutely could work because you could grow with him. But Devin Booker, as he gets older, things are going to happen. He's going to get a little bit less valuable. I think they have passed the window where Devin Booker can be the centerpiece of Phoenix 3.0 or whatever version of this Suns team that we're on right now.
Well, look, again, that is new owner syndrome. I can do it differently than anyone else. Those rules don't apply to me. I'm smarter. And exactly what you just described is, hey, it works for a reason. We've seen it year after year after year. There is a reason teams do this, and thinking it doesn't apply to you somehow, that you are smarter than the 76, 77 years of ownership is just, I don't understand that sometimes from some very smart businessmen who just kind of lose that aspect when they buy an NBA team. I will say, look, in my mind, if you put another superstar next to Devin Booker, if a year or two you had if Luka Doncic falls in your lap, which is apparently something that could happen in the NBA, now we know that. I think if you put another big star next to him, and I think if you had the right pieces around both of them, that they could make some noise
But
in the
Rachel,
Western Conference. I really do.
Who are they outbidding for this?
Here's the caveat. The caveat is because they have no first round draft picks until 2031, they can't probably do that. That path is going to be what, 10% possibility? I mean, I just
One.
the 1% if they do business with Patrick Dumont.
Yeah, if all of a sudden they get the one player that grew up in Arizona and desperately wants to return home and only will play for the Phoenix Suns, like that's the only path here, and that has to happen like in the next 2 years. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't see it. I just don't see it happening. I think this. Look, I admire the desire to win from an owner like Matt Ishbia. I really do.
Absolutely.
And
100%.
investing the way he has, not just in the Phoenix Suns, but the Phoenix Mercury, doing the things he's done behind the scenes to build out the infrastructure there in Phoenix, spending way more than Robert Sarver ever considered doing during his time as owner. It's all great, but there's no objective general manager in the league that would say this team's in a good position. Remember last year when he said, Ishbia said that like every other team wants our roster? Like that was just crazy. It was like, no, they don't.
No.
They love Kevin Durant. They love pieces on this roster, but they don't love Yusuf Nurkic, and they're not clamoring to go get Grayson Allen. Like it's just not connected to reality whatsoever. I think the ship has sailed on the Phoenix Suns, and the best thing they can do is go into a full-scale rebuild. Try to do a deal with the Houston Rockets that gets you some of your draft capital back, so your tanking and your being sucky can be rewarded, like with draft picks.
As opposed to now.
Where it's like you're just sitting there and it's like, the next couple of years, Houston's going to be ruining for your demise. And if I'm Houston, I'm not sure I do a deal with you anyway. Like, why would you want to help them? They're trending in a direction. Like, why would you want to help pull them out of it or give them some of their draft capital back? I don't see it. I think that's there's kind of a bad moon rising down there in Phoenix, and I don't love the way that it's going.
And you're right, by the way. Ishbia has done so many other smart things. It's part of why I don't quite understand some of those quotes in the ESPN story, is that what he did with the local TV rights, I thought was brilliant.
Everyone's piggybacked on him. Yeah.
Putting the Suns on free over-the-air local TV, so every kid in that state grows up a Phoenix Suns fan. You cannot buy that kind of loyalty. And that is what keeps people coming back, even if you have a bad team, and buying your season tickets and making money for your sponsors and all of that. We obviously don't know for sure what happens behind closed doors, but it is important to me that it seems like he is running a much safer and better workplace with less harassment and prejudices than Robert Sarver did in the inner workings of that team. That's a big deal, man. Mm-hmm. So I think he has done so many smart things, and I do appreciate his willingness and want and drive to win. This isn't saying you won't bottom out, isn't about win or not want to win. It is about what is the best way to drive to win. The teams who bottom out, it's not like they don't want to eventually win. They're like, who cares? This NBA team, whatever, throw it in the garbage. They just think the best way to win is to do it this way. And it's going to take a long time, and then it'll be better.
Yeah, it will take a long time. They can punt on these decisions all they want. They can keep putting Band-Aids on a bullet hole, but they're not there, and they're not going to be there. I mean, I can't say I've been around the Suns a lot, but I've caught them a few times over the last few months. And the energy is just, I'm not gonna say it's bad, but just it's just not there. Like it's just mild. And he's sitting on these Mike Budenholzer press conferences, and it looks like he wants to put a Dwayne Rankin in a chokehold. Like it's just like it's just there's just no. It's all the same questions and all the same answers. Like they keep running into the same problems. It seems like week after week, and that's not resolvable with a few tweaks in the off season. That's for sure.